Hey, what's going on, guys? On today's episode, we are going to be going over 7 days of cheap, healthy meals.
All right, guys. So, usually when we think about eating healthy, we have three options. So, we got cheap, we've got healthy, and we've got tasty, but we only get to pick two. But that's just not true.
I think I'd go for cheap and tasty all day long.
Not healthy, yeah.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. I mean,
I
if
think
we,
most people do cheap and tasty.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I would do healthy and tasty, but that doesn't last for very long with, a budget. So,
That's true.
but we're telling you that you don't have to choose. You can have all three.
So you can
And
have your cake and eat it too.
yeah, but cake's not on this list. So, this is how we eat on a normal basis. This is not just spewing facts that we've researched. This is our daily diet. And at the end, we have a list of all the things that we usually buy. But and I think we went out and tested it, and this was a week worth of food for two people, and it was around $35. Is that right?
Yeah, something like that. It was like right before quarantine.
Yeah.
Now that didn't include like seasonings and
Yeah, yeah.
oils and stuff like that
Sure.
we cook in, but
These are the baseline stuff that we normally buy on a grocery run. I mean, we're not usually buying salt and pepper every single week.
true.
So we didn't include those, but $35 regardless for two people for a week, that's pretty good. And that's usually how we operate. So, and we boil it down to just picking something that is quick and is easy. And it's not something that's super, super complicated, because then you end up buying more ingredients and usually more expensive ingredients because it's stuff that you don't normally use. So this is just buying the basics and doing the most with what you normally buy.
It's almost like the minimalistic approach to food. There's I don't know if it's a study or anything, but I guess the trends are when you have less, especially when it comes to clothes, you can actually be more stylistic. You can accessorize better. You can do different things because you have your base level of things. Honestly, this is the same exact way where there's, you would think that, if you have all these different options and then you have broccoli as an option, you're never going to eat it. But if you have broccoli, as we will touch on, you might only have so many ways that you can spice up broccoli. But when you only have broccoli, you can do it a lot more.
Yeah. I mean, and we're talking from a couple who, we regularly have contests about who can spend the least at the grocery store if
That's
we're doing
true.
individual runs. So, we're frugal people. At least I am. Matt's working on it. But
Working on it.
but we're not about to go out and eat all the time, so we have to do the most with what we buy at the grocery store. So, I mean, to start out with, let's define a daily healthy meal. So it's something that's nutritious, consistent, and something we can make on a schedule. So this isn't something that's just, we have, 15 minutes to make something, and we bust out, it's preheat the oven. It's not that kind of stuff. It's something that we can get done in those 15 minutes. And even if it's a last minute thing, we still have the option to eat healthy and tasty.
Yeah, it's something that we're going to touch on a little bit later, but it's the same idea as like kids. They love Kraft macaroni and cheese, but the thing that they love most about it is the fact that it's
Tastes
consistent,
the same.
and it tastes the same, it's consistent, and to the parents, it's also cheap.
Yeah.
But incorporating that same philosophy into things that adults can eat, can spice up, can do differently, is a huge factor. And like I said, we'll touch even on it with just being consistent,
Yeah.
and helping you kind of find different things that you might be struggling with, but as long as you're consistent with your food, you can kind of pick some of those things out.
Yeah. And we're on opposite sides of the spectrum with some of this stuff too, but we still eat the same thing. So, for example, Matt could eat probably the same meal for the rest of his life. Sweet potatoes and eggs. That was
add some chicken or broccoli in there.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, that would be your meal, and you could eat that every day and be fine with it, right? Mm-hmm. Me, not so much. I need some variety. I need some spice. So we're not just talking about something that's easy to make and consistent, but it's also ways to spice it up and change it up. So it might be a simple cheese omelet, but you can change it up with different seasonings, different spices, different cheeses. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to get boring. Mm-hmm. So
yeah. Whereas, I mean, for me, it's I've gone up to a 4-egg omelet now every single morning. Used to be 3. That's my change. It's just adding an extra egg. But it's been garlic, oregano, red pepper, and some salt in it. But it's been that for, I mean, months now.
I've also taught Matt to season his food more, so we're getting more into that. But but in general, I mean, as a quick tip before we get into the actual recipes, don't shy away from frozen food and frozen vegetables, especially. We touched on this in past podcasts, but the problem with healthy food a lot of people have is they buy fresh and then it sits in their refrigerator or on their shelf and it rots before they get to use it, or before they think of a way to use it. So frozen, people come up to us and say, well, you have to microwave it, you have to steam it, whatever. Isn't that worse? And the argument is not really, is it worse or is it better? Is it better to eat broccoli that's frozen or not eat it at all? If it means that you're not going to eat broccoli at all, it's probably better just to buy frozen so then you can have it and actually use it.
The other thing that I like a lot about frozen food, especially when you have to microwave them, is you can just put it in the microwave, forget about it.
Yeah.
Just set it for 5 minutes and then you can be doing other things. Whether that even be like tending to the kids or getting something else done or cooking something else on the stove.
That's why like Hot Pockets or whatever, they're so popular because they're put it in the microwave and you're done.
Yeah.
Or put it in the oven and you're done.
Yep.
But you can do the same thing with healthy things.
Have you ever seen what's in a Hot Pocket?
I don't really want to know.
I'm gonna pull it up here. Hot Pocket nutrition facts. It's been a while since I've
before I really got into nutrition, it was pizza rolls for me. So, which sometimes you squeeze it out and you're just like, that's what I'm eating. Ugh.
I was a Hot Pocket guy.
Yeah.
Well, this is on their website. There's no way that they're going to show everything. But you know what's in frozen broccoli?
Frozen broccoli.
That's oh my gosh, that's so funny. Let me see here.
But yeah, I mean, what you're eating for that kind of stuff. So just we get, and there's all kinds. So it's not just frozen broccoli. There's Brussels sprouts. We primarily shop at Aldi's, and sometimes they have frozen peppers that are already cut up. So all you have to do is just dump them in the pan, and you don't need to do anything. And they last for forever. At Costco, they have a frozen avocado chunks, which I enjoy because you know how fast avocados go bad. So you just have this huge bag of pretty much endless avocados, let them thaw for a little bit, and you are set. So I use that on my daily omelets and everything. So these are just preemptive tips on healthy eating in general. But did you find out what's in a Hot Pocket?
It's too long. It would take the entire podcast to read.
Gosh.
It's actually kind of scary. This is just for like a ham and cheese Hot Pocket. I mean, I'm counting. I would say there's probably at least 50 ingredients in this.
Yeah. Well, that's another tip.
Fractionated palm oil dough container blend with L-cysteine.
I mean, it's not always a bad thing when you can't understand the ingredients because, sometimes they're more than meets the eye. They're not just, processed things. But, yeah, if it has 50 ingredients, you can probably bet that there's something in there that you shouldn't be eating.
Yeah, unless you put on like 50 different seasonings.
Yeah, that kind of stuff where you where you notice.
Yeah, and when I think it's like the fifth ingredient on this is sugar. That's also not ideal.
Yeah.
So, what do some of these things have in common? Pop-Tarts, Hot Pockets, pizza rolls, Kraft mac and cheese. It's all consistent. You can buy it at any store. It's always going to taste the same. But ultimately, there is sugar added. And that sugar component is what keeps us addicted to it. And it keeps it tasting good and all the time. Now, does sometimes need to be some sort of sugar combo, salt, in order for the preservatives, but a lot of that's more of a chemical. So if we can take those same things that make those taste good and just make it taste better with any sort of seasoning,
Just natural.
but yeah, with the raw vegetable.
Yeah.
And I wasn't quite wasn't quite listening when you were talking about the avocados, but I know that's kind of a game changer for you too.
Yeah.
Because good luck picking a good avocado, and then as soon as you use it, it's bad.
At first, yeah, that's another whole story. So I'm not good at picking avocados anyway.
I'm decent. My roommate
Yeah.
Jeffrey is amazing at picking avocados. It doesn't matter where he goes.
I feel like it looks the same as I usually get it, feels the same, and I cut it open, and it's either too, whatever. That's my own gripe with avocados. So get them frozen.
Jeff's keys to good avocados. I'm going to try to break this down. Is it can be slightly green, and then the nub that's on it, or like the stem. It's not a real big stem, but the stem is still there. His theory with it is when it was taken off of the tree, then if it was snapped and the stem is very long, then it means that it was not ripe when he picked it. But if it snaps at like the perfect location, it's basically like the length of the stem.
It's avocado science.
Yeah. Which, listen, like I said, I
mean,
don't
if he
think
does a better job than me, then
I don't think he's ever had a bad avocado.
Well, I've had plenty, but anyway, let's get into our recipes here. So these are things that we eat on the daily. We'll go through the main ingredients, the oils and seasoning, and you will see that generally the main ingredients, there's not that many. And the ones that there are, we're not going to tell you to put in, extra sugars or whatever there is in a Hot Pocket. These are things that you would normally have on your regular shopping list that you have at the ready. Usually if we don't have anything in our fridge, I'm using air quotes right now. If we don't have anything in our fridge, we can put something together with this stuff because it's stuff we always have on hand. So, the first thing is just an emphasis on greens. And the more you start eating healthy on a regular basis, and Matt can attest to this too, is if we go, especially if we go down for like Thanksgiving or something, and we just start eating just all the breads and all the stuffings and greases. And
I love it.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. But our bodies are not accustomed to it because it's not stuff we eat on a normal basis. So when we come home, how you get a craving for chocolate or sugar, you get a craving for broccoli.
Weird.
And that might sound super crazy and that we're just like, okay, well, you guys are health nuts. Like, you crave broccoli. Who are you? But it's true.
We touched upon this in a past podcast where, like, visually, like, your eyes, the receptors in your body crave different colors.
Yeah.
And they crave different nutrients. And essentially, after a huge weekend of eating where everything's brown or everything has sugar or whatever in it, it's crazy how your body's just like, I want something green.
Yeah.
Something green.
And that's the other thing, too, which we've also touched on, is that a lot of the artificial coloring in food and why it appeals to us so much is because our bodies naturally want different colors in our diet. So we see a rainbow sprinkle donut and our brain is tricked into thinking that's nutritious. And that's part of the reason that we like it so much. Not just because it tastes good. But so anyway, in this green-centered meal, our main ingredients are eggs, broccoli, spinach, avocado.
I ate this for lunch for probably 6 months. It's when I was driving. Because I was able to mix it up and kind of just keep it in a cooler it doesn't taste the greatest when it's cold, but it still it tastes good enough that it's almost kind of like a salad, where I'd prefer to eat it warm with warm broccoli and warm eggs, but even if it's a little bit cooler, it still tastes good too, and
Yeah.
it's nutritious.
Yeah, I mean, you just and there's no these aren't really real recipes. Like, and none of the stuff on this list is a real recipe. It's just kind of combining things that you have to make a meal. You don't have to have a recipe for every single meal. I like to have one or two like new recipes per week because it just keeps me on my toes. I like to cook anyway. But having something that's just a meal, plain and simple, there are no instructions involved, you don't have to get out your recipe book, makes it so much easier to eat healthy on a regular basis.
And once again, these are the things that we keep on hand all the time.
Yeah.
So even if you go down through, I mean, this is even something, most people get eggs. And that's about it. I guess most people don't get frozen broccoli or spinach or avocado, but that's something that, the amount of spinach that we use, even one of those bags, you're talking a little over $1, depending on where you get it. And it lasts for about a week and a half, after you open the bag. Obviously don't take my word for it. Look at it, make sure it's okay. But these are the things where it's the same. I'll give my parents as an example. I come from an Italian side where pasta is everything, pasta and sauce. These are two things that have a very long shelf life. You can always keep pasta on hand, and what's beautiful about pasta is it cooks up very quickly. And it's consistent, and you can put any sort of seasoning on it. Heck, you could just put butter, salt, and pepper, and it's always pasta. It always tastes pretty good. That's kind of where we're getting to. Now we've just shifted, and specifically with this meal, it's with something that we would always have, like frozen broccoli, eggs, and spinach.
Plus, you do not have to give up pasta, and we'll get to that. It's a little twist on it, but
Yeah.
and also we're not telling you to just have eggs and broccoli, spinach, and avocado, and just plain. Please season it. You won't want to eat it if you don't do that again. So our seasonings we usually use. So we cook it all.
I don't know what made me think about that, but it's like the roller coaster was like, please keep your arms and legs in the vehicle at all times.
Yeah, it's
Please
dangerous to not season your broccoli, but
it is.
it'll be gross. So we cook it in coconut oil. Not only is it just good for you as an oil, but it has Matt knows more about temperatures, cooking temperatures and things, but
Yeah, well, it just has a higher smoke point.
Yeah.
Than you really any sort of olive oil or virgin olive oil, any like something that's more along the lines of a salad dressing, a topping almost, is going to be better off for that, not cooking.
yeah. Well, basically any of the oils that you can get in a big like jug at the supermarket that you're probably cannot.
Canola oil is the one. Get rid of it.
No.
Done. I know that the Pam spray, especially when you're spraying stuff, they make coconut oil sprays now. You could take a little bit of avocado oil, paper towel, and just kind of spread it around.
Yeah.
The same thing.
I
Now
think
you got.
it's only it's only flavored, like it's only with it. It's still Pam,
Oh, really?
but I don't know. I'd have to Google that. But
Anyway, if there's one thing that you get out of this,
I'll look it up.
throw away the canola oil. Just the way that it's processed. There's so many carcinogens. There's so many chemicals. It's like basically a trans fat at its essence. Like that's what it is. Whereas coconut oil, very clear what it is. And then also avocado oil is another one. I just think that avocado oil gives a little bit more of a savory flavor. I like that better with like an omelet or something. Coconut oil doesn't taste very good with an omelet, but it does taste very good with some rice. If you have some jasmine rice, instead of putting butter in it, put a little bit of coconut oil. That has a good flavor as well. But coconut oil is certainly a staple, higher smoke point. In fact, I kind of like it with my pancakes too. The Kodiak cakes.
they do have a regular coconut oil spray. I had it previously, and I believe it was just
flavored.
But
So Pam makes
Pam
coconut
makes it.
oil
So that's
spray.
really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, in general, the seasonings that we use are, I mean, the coconut oil does give it a flavor, like Matt said, and then pink Himalayan salt, pepper, garlic, and cayenne pepper. All that together, that's all you need.
Salt gets a really bad rep too. Your body chases salt. We'll link in the description kind of the articles that we find, like basically sugar and carbohydrates and salt use the same chain to get into your cell. So whenever you eat like a Chinese food and you get really, really bloated, a lot of people say it's the salt content. In actuality, it's the amount of carbs and the amount of sugars that's in that mixes with the salt. If you just have salt,
it's them working together. So the salt itself is not making you bloated. It's the combination.
Yeah, and plus pink Himalayan salt, like it tastes good.
Yeah.
You could almost have like a grain and put it, just kind of eat it.
Well, if you're crazy, yeah, you should do that.
I listen.
Matt eats handfuls of salt.
I do when I need minerals, especially if I'm before I lift or after I lift, kind of repleting those or replenishing those minerals.
Yeah. Wow.
But
so
I'm also a crazy.
That's our greens meal. Our second of our 7 is a slow cooker meal, and I would say we've kind of slacked off on slow cookers just because now we're totally working from home, so we don't need to. But especially when I was working full time, Matt was working full time, it was tough to try to get a meal in every single night. There were definitely times where it was just I don't know, just eggs. That's it. Like heat up a bag of broccoli and that's it. And then it doesn't really satisfy you. So having something that's an actual recipe on hand that takes minimal amount of time that you can just put in the crock pot and leave it. And then since it's a crock pot, especially if a big one, it's going to last you for leftovers. And this is a recipe that I found from cleanfoodcrush.com. And it's super, super simple. And we used it all the time. Not just, we used it on its own, but also for tacos or anything, we want to add it to a recipe. But again, 4 ingredients. So we've got chicken breasts, orange juice, salsa, and frozen Brussels sprouts. And frozen Brussels sprouts aren't even in the crockpot recipe. We just pair them. So all you do is you throw the chicken breasts, orange juice, and salsa in the crockpot, and you let it sit for 8 hours. That's it.
It's tough.
That's it. I mean, it's like a 4th cup of orange juice and a cup of salsa. Like super simple. And you put your chicken breast in it. And that's it.
That one was surprisingly, like with the orange juice and the salsa, it gives that sweet spicy flavor.
Yeah, it's like orange
it.
chicken. So,
yeah, orange chicken. But very, very good.
Yeah, I came across this recipe and I was like, I don't know about that. Like orange juice and salsa. But it's really good, especially if you add spinach or some greens on the side. That's a whole meal right there.
And even in one of these meals too, I wouldn't necessarily do it every single time, but even like some white rice, if you kind of make a bed for this crock pot recipe and then put some greens and then put the spinach on top, all of that, the salsa and
peppers
the salsa, everything kind of falls through, and you can almost eat it a little bit more like a stew. But yeah, I mean, that's like you said, I mean, it's the slow cooker aspect of things is a game changer, especially when you can take that 10-15 minutes in the morning, just throw everything in there, set it,
even
done.
For this, you just get it out and you do it. That's it. But
and also if you have a big enough refrigerator, you just put it in there the night before, put the whole, put the bowl in
all the leftovers.
In the refrigerator, and then just take it out.
Yeah.
And heat it up.
So I mean, this is super, super simple. The added bonus of using a slow cooker is you put the chicken breast in there whole. You don't have to cut it. And then as soon as you take it out, it just take 2 forks and shred it. Mm-hmm. It shreds super easy. The recipe recommends 5 to 6 hours or on high for 2 to 3. And I usually worked at my full-time job in the morning, and then I worked at the gym at night, so it was in there for like 8 hours at least, and it was perfectly fine. So this isn't for slow cooker recipes, for the most part, you can't screw them up. The longer it's in there, the more tender it's going to be.
Just when we had our
yeah.
Halloween get together, I made a beef. I guess it was pulled pork, and I had accidentally left it in the crock pot. I think it was for 22 hours.
Yeah.
It was the most tender,
It was
best
good
tasting
as
pork.
an accident.
It was an accident. Yeah. Super good though.
But yeah, I mean, that kind of stuff, slow cooker recipes, look them up, especially minimal ingredients, easy. There are more complicated ones out there. I've also have an Instant Pot, which I really like because it takes basically a slow cooker recipe and speeds the time up to not even half.
You can make rice in 4 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, it's
pretty
done.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you haven't had an Instant Pot yet, go out and get one. They're amazing. But the other thing is, breakfast for dinner, our third one on the list here, is
Classic.
perfect. It's perfect for every day.
So, even better than like going to a diner and having breakfast food in the morning. Like, I think breakfast for dinner actually tastes better than breakfast at breakfast.
And the key thing about breakfast is it's easy.
We're
it's
not going to
always
elaborate
simple.
on that. That was a hot take.
Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, it is so good. Especially like a little bit of decaf coffee too. But I like, or even like an herbal tea. Even like a bowl of oatmeal or whatever for dinner. There's something about the aroma, the flavor.
I think it's probably because, breakfast foods are a little bit sweeter. So it's kind of like having dessert, but, having breakfast at the same time. You're all backwards.
Is an omelet sweeter?
I'm not talking about an omelet. We didn't even go over the main ingredients yet here, Matthew. All right. So the main ingredients that we use for our breakfast for dinner are eggs, spinach. There are 5 in this one. Eggs, spinach, sweet potatoes, frozen fruit, and oatmeal. And for oils and seasonings, we just use
The classic
coconut oil and salt and pepper and chili powder, oregano, garlic, and paprika for the sweet potatoes. And this makes them kind of home fry feel.
As an edit to this specific article that Sarah wrote for the coconut oil, I will admit that I have kind of switched over to more avocado oil. It is more expensive, but it's a different flavor. Been using avocado oil, especially for the eggs and sweet potatoes. But I always kind of go back to coconut oil as well.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you want to season it with or cook it in, breakfast for dinner it's a go-to. It's easy. We like to do it with the sweet potatoes in, like I said, kind of a home fry style. So we chop it up into just kind of chunks and start season
Little
cubes.
Cubes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And season it.
Smaller the better, I think. But you can also do bigger cubes as well.
Yeah. I mean, and especially, we also like to do this one on the grill too, which we've tried.
The aluminum foil.
Yeah.
Grab it up.
But all of it's really good, especially oatmeal with some frozen fruit is really, really good. Just pop the fruit in for the remaining time that, half the time the oatmeal's cooking and then half the time add in the fruit.
Yeah, I think the instant oatmeal is like 2-minute total cook time. So like what you're saying, just like a minute without the fruit in there. And then
we're talking instant oatmeal that's plain, not the flavored kind, because I know that it does come with that and that's not real.
It's just too sweet.
Yeah, well, because the majority of it's sugar. The
True.
other thing is, and that I can't remember exactly where it was, but they were comparing the limitations of ingredients that were allowed in the U.S. and in England, and for the U.S. versions of the same thing. So it was like Quaker Oats was one of the instant oatmeal, which is I'm bringing it up. They had like a totally different ingredient list in the American version than they did in the British version, only because half the ingredients aren't allowed in England. So, and part of it was like the strawberry flavor. There were real strawberries in the British one, and the American one was, I don't even know what, some kind of artificial flavoring.
Well, that's even like the So I guess Business Insider did this back in 2015, but even something like McDonald's, they have different menus all around the world, and typically speaking, and some of the McDonald's in other countries
Oh,
are,
yeah.
are far healthier.
Oh, for sure.
Um,
I mean, when I was in Japan, I mean, it's a different restaurant. It's not the same at all. There was another one we went to. It was like, I don't know if it was Wendy's, but some kind of,
Here you go, McDonald's Japan's chicken veggie burger.
yeah.
Which looks amazing.
I know. It's just stuff that you would like if they served it at McDonald's in America. You'd be like, well, I'm not eating that.
Thailand samurai pork.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
So
Just so much more variety.
Yeah.
But it's also not a coincidence. Look at the obesity rate in America
Yeah.
in comparison to other countries. And you start adding the sugar, you start supersizing things, you start giving these astronomical proportions. And
Yeah.
most people are busy. America is like one of the only countries that still work that typical 9 to 5, the 8-hour workday. So all of that time, that's why we're trying to simplify these things in 10 to 15-minute meals, is because in the same amount of time that it takes you to sit through a drive-through, go home, and then finally eat that McDonald's Happy Meal, which is convenient. I'm
Yeah.
not taking that away from it. But in terms of nutritious, in terms of, healthy options, it's not. So if you could just channel, instead of sitting in the drive-through, to just go home, have these things on hand, and then, make them, now you're talking about a much more nutritious, healthy meal, that ultimately you're just hungry.
Yeah.
You're just hungry.
Yeah.
So if you just eat something, it doesn't matter what it's going to be. Odds are that's going to crave whatever mood that you're in.
Yeah, I mean, just pay attention to what your body needs, and the main thing, which we were talking about with the different ingredients, was pay attention to what you're eating. Before you eat it, and I'm not talking about tracking the calories or anything. I would not recommend doing that.
It's hard. It's not
hard.
sustainable.
And it can just lead you to obsessing over the calories and how much you're taking in. And neither of us count calories at all. And it's nothing that I've ever done, because it just doesn't.
The one thing that I do is that if I especially want to put on a little bit more muscle mass, the difference is I'm very consistent with my meals to begin with. So I know approximately, I'm not counting calories, but I know approximately how much I'm eating that day. So it's very easy for me to just add one more meal, maybe some Greek yogurt and blueberries, or an extra bowl of oatmeal,
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah.
That's the extent of me counting calories.
Yeah, I mean, pay attention to a rough estimate of how many calories. I mean, if you're eating, it was just Halloween and we had candy, and it was. I had a lot of candy. Listen, Halloween is my favorite. Okay, Reese's Cups. Alrighty. Anyway, so I. It's like it's like 170 or something calories in Reese's.
But who's counting?
Okay, I got a Reese's tree because they didn't have any more pumpkins, so I said they were spooky trees. But anyway, yeah, Reese's. That's a lot, and I'm not counting it because it's Halloween and I'm eating it. But paying attention to that when you're just eating it and you're just like, oh, whatever, And now suddenly you've eaten the entire bag and you've eaten enough for 6 days. Like
I have this theory. I guess it's not really a theory as much as it's just more of an observation. If it's in your house, you're gonna eat it.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
which is why the candy's gone now.
Which is that's not where I was going, but yes, the candy is gone.
Yeah.
So it goes back to even stocking your refrigerator, stocking your cabinets and your cupboards with these basic ingredients of just kind of always having on hand. That way, when you are super hungry, you don't. That's the thing is, if you have a Hot Pocket or Kraft mac and cheese,
you're gonna go eat it.
And
I would too.
We're guilty of that too, and we have been. What was the little granola bites?
Oh yeah,
that we got that
Sometimes
lasted
we go
for
out
maybe
to get,
a week.
Yeah, they were like cookies basically.
Yeah,
I mean organic cookies, but they were cookies. So yeah, if you buy it, you're gonna eat it. So just be careful what you buy. My personal rule, it's not really a rule because like I just said, I just ate a whole bunch of candy, but I was giving it to the trick or treaters from a distance. But but if I am buying something, I make sure just general rule of thumb. Don't buy something that's unhealthy. That's it. and and by unhealthy, I mean not nutritious. That's it. You don't want to get into the mindset of this is good food, this is bad food, because that can also be damaging. But you can also be real with yourself and say, okay, buying a pack of donuts probably isn't good to have in the house every day. So that's fine. That doesn't mean you don't ever have donuts, but
Oh, and I
yeah,
have donuts.
yeah, that's what I mean. So next time I'm at a party or some kind of, environment where it's something unusual that I get to have a donut, then I have a donut, no qualms about it. I just have it. My cousin and a lot of people in my family are nurses. And so the tricky thing with this is, especially, and I used to work in retail, so they always have, the leftover donuts or whatever.
Or a customer's always bringing
Yeah.
something in, an
That's
employee, whatever.
that's a different story. You're not buying it. It is free, so it's very easy to go in and just.
I deserve a cookie.
Yeah, I mean that's
Hold on. First and foremost, shout out to healthcare workers because their jobs are darn near impossible, especially now with what they deal with on a daily basis. It's not being talked about enough. So when you are bringing things in, especially when they're sweets, the emotions that they're going through, I certainly get it and understand, and it takes willpower to not be able to do those donuts. But once again, what they're going through is something that no one is going through right now. So
all I wanted to say on that is that's a different story. So you have to recognize that too. If it's something that's always available, I mean, we used to have somebody would bring in the office almost every single day some kind of cookies or candies or whatever, and for me it was easy because I just didn't go in that room. I didn't go in the room that had the candy. But if that's not available, if it's just in the regular break room or whatever, it's a different thing. You have to be honest with yourself.
The other thing that you'll notice too, especially when you get more consistent with your diet and you're making stuff at home, it becomes a lot easier to have a little bit more self-control when you see those things. When we were working, we would always have, either like a pizza party or people bring in donuts for, our sales pitch or whatever. And especially when I was doing intermittent fasting in the mornings and stuff, I would look at a donut and just be like, I just
don't really want it.
I just don't want it. I wouldn't be able to eat that right now. And it's very easy to say, nah, I'm just not going to eat that. Just likewise, pizza, especially if I had already eaten a bigger lunch, you just look at the pizza and you're like, well, I know that I have, something at home, where it's a little bit easier to say. But if you're eating that Hot Pocket, if you're having donuts every morning anyway, and then free donuts are in front of you. Yeah. Give me some free broccoli.
I feel like this is oh gosh, just a warm boiled broccoli out there in the break room.
Eat it.
But I feel like that's a different podcast.
I was going to say, we'll have a different podcast on like how we eat when we eat out, or, when stuff's in front of us, or when we travel.
Yeah. But to get back on topic of these healthy meals, number 4 is fish, which makes a really simple, cheap, and healthy meal. And you could feel a little bit more fancy doing it because, when you go out to eat, it's fish. That's a fancy thing. And there are only 3 main ingredients in this main dish that we make: salmon, frozen asparagus, rice. That's pretty much it. And for seasonings, we use pink salt, lemon pepper for the salmon, and then red pepper flakes for the salmon and the asparagus.
Salmon's another thing. Get frozen. That it is awesome. And in fact, if you thaw it out like the way I think it only takes like 10 to 15 minutes to thaw, and then only like 8 to 10 minutes in the oven. So you're talking a very minimal meal, and both of those things.
Too.
Yeah, hands off. That is another huge key where, it's basically only like a couple minutes of
something that you have to be watching and stirring and, setting timers for. You're not going to want to make that on a daily basis, not unless you're a chef or, if you're a normal person, you don't want to be super hands-on with your food because, just today I was like, I had I did what I did say. I said, Matt, make me an omelet. And he did because he listens. But for the most part, if you're eating something that's just to have a meal and to go, you want it to be tasty, but you don't want it to be something that is going to take up all of your time. You want it to just be, make it and done.
Yeah. Well, and what was I gonna say? About the only thing that would take the longest that we cook is probably the sweet potatoes.
Yeah.
Just in terms of chopping them, and that really just depends on how many sweet potatoes you make. I eat so many sweet potatoes.
That is like 50% sweet potato.
Probably. And then the key with that is if you get a larger pan, a larger frying pan, and then you're able to cover it, with some sort of glass lid or whatever, that also helps things cook a little bit faster. But all in all, that probably takes about a half hour to cook from chopping to actually serving the sweet potatoes.
But then, the only thing is that, you flip it and then it's cooking.
That's just what I was going to say is that like I can focus on either thawing out or seasoning the chicken or cooking the chicken while that's being made.
It's something that's happening in the background. And that's the thing, if you want to add something a little bit more special to your daily meal, these things are so hands off that if you want to make, a fancy side or whatever and spice it up, you can, because this kind of stuff happens. You're done in minutes.
Mm-hmm. And that is a key. I think we touched on this before, but having consistency in a meal that's already made, that you can focus on something that is, something that's your own, that takes a while. Because if you just focus on that and nothing's made, guess who's going to McDonald's?
Yeah.
You are, because you give up on, what the meal is. It was supposed to be this, but if you could stay consistent in at least, the fish, asparagus, and rice that's made, well, then you can, maybe focus on
branch out
something else. Yeah.
And plus the thing is, like, we're used to all of these recipes, but the first time that you make it, it's going to be new. The plain Jane cheese omelet, if you don't usually have that, that's a new recipe right there. And then you can slowly work your way. It's not like you have to feel the pressure of changing it up and spicing it up every single time, until you get tired of it. And then your body's gonna tell you what it wants anyway, something spicy or something.
And that's why too, like, it's not just 2 daily healthy meals. It's 7. These are the ones that we consistently have all the time. Although this next one, we don't necessarily have all the time. But what we like, eggs, sweet potatoes, spinach, like those are all pretty consistent. Broccoli, like that never changes. That when we do want to branch out or we do want to add a different daily healthy meal, and that is the other thing, you don't. Like these 7 do not need to be your daily healthy meals. These are just examples. Ours, and these are ours.
Yeah.
These are the things that we do. But we also, different meals kind of come up all the time.
Or had at one time, because for this one, we don't. We used to make this one all the time, but not so much anymore because things change.
Right.
But our 5th daily healthy meal. Is leftovers. So, like I said, going back to that crock pot recipe, if you make it on Monday, you're going to have it for another day of the week. So that day of the week, maybe it's Thursday, and you come home after a really long day of work, and you really don't want to cook, not even a quick, 3-ingredient thing, then you're in luck. You have the leftover chicken in the fridge. So all you need is frozen broccoli, frozen cauliflower rice. Literally, you stick both of those in the microwave, hands off, they're done, and you season it. And I put cheese over the chicken, the leftovers, and season it with just salt and pepper or whatever else I have, and it's done. It's literally the simplest meal. You season it however you want, because it's a bare bones kind of recipe that you can change it up. You can make it spicier, you can make it a little sweeter, depending on just seasonings. That's it.
Yeah. That is another big thing, at least for me visually, when I'm eating something. I always like to have a protein, a carb, and then a vegetable. It's just kind of, how I work. There are some people that like that leftover chicken recipe. They might just be able to have that and they'll be fine.
Yeah.
I need a little bit more than that, just, either in the forms of like rice or whatnot. Keep that in mind when you're making things, knowing that the rice is going to... We have a tendency to either take in more than we need to when we're just eating an individual thing than actually plating it and making it a meal. So try to refrain from kind of like
Yeah.
popping a couple sweet
So
potatoes
think
making.
about it as like you eating the ice cream out of the gallon versus
Yeah,
in a
well,
bowl. You know,
and I was
you don't
gonna
realize how
go.
much you're
Yeah,
eating.
and I was gonna go even like more specifically with how the timing of how you make the meal, knowing that sweet potatoes are going to take the longest, rice is going to take the longest, and then it goes down to like broccoli
Yeah,
taking 5 minutes. So what takes less time,
yeah,
that you make those things first, because not only is the cheap healthy meal a good first step, but especially waiting until that cheap healthy meal is plated.
mm-hmm.
That's why it only takes 15, because I can't wait longer than 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So
By the
especially
time you want to make that meal, you're already hungry.
yeah,
So
yeah. So especially when you have leftovers, knowing that the leftovers is just a matter of putting in the microwave. So make the rice first. Make the things that are actually need to be made first.
yeah,
Throw in the microwave, then plate it all.
math
Just
lesson in efficiency.
yeah.
Uh,
Oh boy, don't get me started.
so our sixth cheap healthy meal is probably the one that we have most often that I mentioned at the beginning is an omelet. So an omelet is great. It is what it is, you know. But you can make
Encourage you to go watch the Jerry Seinfeld stand up.
all right, anyway. the for an omelet, it's very consistent. But also inconsistent at the same time. If you're making an omelet with the same amount of ingredients, it's pretty much going to take the same every single time. Like it's going to be the same omelet, and that's exactly. So my brother, my younger brother, has autism, and a very common thing with autism is they don't like change. They like very consistent things.
Just like
So
it's just like a kid.
yeah,
So if you're a parent listening to this as well, like your
yeah,
kid is probably having the same thing.
yeah. I mean that's
That's what it is.
yeah. It's just kind of a regressed taste. You know, it's just how kids think they like something consistent. So do people with autism, and you know, it's very hard for him to eat healthy, which is what we're working on nutrition because you know, Pop Tarts, corn dogs, you know, all these processed things, they taste exactly the same every single time because they're literally
They're designed to
processed,
do that.
you know.
Yeah, they process.
But also you're not getting pretty much any nutrition there. So something that I got him for his birthday was an omelet maker. So you know, when there's a little bit of variety when you make your own omelet. You know, sometimes it's not cooked the same amount every time. But this omelet maker, it's kind of like a waffle maker. You just mix up the eggs, pour them in there, set it, and leave it. And then it dings, it's done, you serve the omelet. It is the same every single time, same cooking, everything, and you just change the ingredients if you want to. So you know, it's simple. It's something that's consistent, but you can also change it up based on what you put in it, what you put on top of it. Some of the main ingredients that we use, and this is probably our longest list out of our meals, but it's also the one we use most often, so it's not like it's super complicated. We use eggs, obviously, peppers, onions, spinach, cheese, and then on the side, sweet potatoes or broccoli. So you know, put whatever you want in your omelets. My tip is add a tiny bit of almond milk or whatever kind of milk into when you're whisking the eggs, and it makes them a little more fluffy. And then as far as seasonings go, just we cook it in coconut oil or avocado oil, sometimes butter, but salt, garlic, pepper, and turmeric. That we put that on the sweet potatoes.
Another quick thing with butter, try to make sure that it's at least probably grass fed. Not to mention it tastes better. It has a little bit more flavor than regular butter, and it's not as processed. So once again, like this is kind of the biggest thing we're trying to say is like stay consistent, but also stay consistent with what ingredients you're getting. If you're going to be consistent, you know, we're not saying, you know, get organic grass-fed or free-range chicken eggs or anything. You know, do it mindfully. But just like, you know, how you're very consistent with, you know, eating pasta or Pop-Tarts or something like that, like if it is going to be a staple meal and it's going to be something that basically, like Sarah made the comment that I'm 50% sweet potato. If it's going to be half of you, or it's going to be something that you eat all the time, make it good quality.
Yeah.
Because you owe it to yourself
Yeah.
to do it that way.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing. Like we don't get the free range chicken eggs. We just get the regular eggs at Aldi's, and that's the kind of thing that we prioritize different parts of our meals. So it's the same thing as if you're eating frozen broccoli, that's better than not eating broccoli at all if you're just going to eat it fresh and it's going to rot. So don't get hung up on that small stuff. You can always and just a general baseline for transitioning into a more nutritious diet. Don't try to do everything at once. Try to just add more greens into your diet, and that's it. And once that gets easy, then you can start to think about, okay, well, I need to add more variety in which greens I'm eating, whatever. If you try to change everything drastically, you're not going to want to stick to it.
I guess as an example, coffee drinkers, the way I started drinking coffee was not black right away.
No.
I had a lot of cream, a lot of sugar, and eventually just weaned off of it. It got to be to the point where it just took extra time. And honestly, I started becoming more of a coffee connoisseur where I just appreciated the flavor.
Yeah.
Much like if you need to add, a whole bunch of really sweet seasonings or, cinnamon and butter to your sweet potatoes or whatever it is, that's fine.
Yeah.
If that's what gets you into making sweet potatoes consistent.
Bonus recipe. We haven't made it in a while, but baked sweet potato with butter and cinnamon and a little dollop of ice cream. Delicious dessert. So
that is good. Not something you should have consistently
no,
every single day.
that's not a cheap healthy meal for the daily. That's a bonus.
That is a bonus, but it surprisingly it tastes very good.
Matt didn't believe me, but
didn't. But it was good.
And number 7, I said you don't have to give up pasta. In general, you don't have to give up pasta anyway, but Matt's family, like you said, is Italian. They've gotten really into spaghetti squash, which is not this meal, but
my mom sends me like a picture daily now with just spaghetti squash,
different kinds
and
of spaghetti
and
squash,
chicken.
Yeah, it
looks awesome.
And it's super easy. If you have not worked with spaghetti squash before, you don't have to spaghetti-ize it. You don't have to spiralize or anything. You just fluff it up and it looks like spaghetti.
That's the ultimate set it and forget it type thing, because that takes a while. That takes is like 25, 30 minutes.
It depends on like what we're making. I usually do it for 40 minutes.
Yeah, so that's something that, if you get home and you still have work to do, or, the kids are still at practice or whatever it is, pop that in the oven first to be ready. But
then it's super easy. It's just like if you want to make spaghetti, just add tomatoes and
But that's what I mean. It's like even like zucchini, the spaghetti squash. It doesn't in comparison to something that you have to heat up for 10 to 15 minutes anyway. Albeit pizza or pizza rolls, regular pasta. It's on the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it's
not
not
like
that much longer, and the time that you're have to wait, it's worth it, like beyond. But spaghetti squash is one example. A little bit quicker. It cooks quicker than regular pasta. Is zucchini spaghetti. You can get it pre-spiralized. It's usually a little more expensive. Plus, it doesn't last as long. But you can spiralize it yourself. It doesn't really take that much effort. If I'm sometimes for like spiralized recipes, I just get like a julienne slicer, just the real skinny strips of it, and that works fine too. So just it's kind of resembles spaghetti. It doesn't really taste like spaghetti, but the same kind of ingredients are involved. We use zucchini, peppers, onions, spaghetti sauce, and Parmesan cheese. It's spaghetti. So
yeah, and with pasta, the main thing that you're tasting is just the seasonings on it.
Yeah,
pasta does
itself,
taste pretty good.
Yeah,
it tastes like it's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
You get more flavor out of the zucchini.
Yeah,
anyway.
and that is a good point. And veggies, eating a particularly like veggie diet. I'm not saying that you need to be vegetarian, carnivore, vegan, whatever. But when I was vegetarian for probably 4 to 6 months, you get a lot more flavor.
Yeah.
Vegetables they're flavorful on
Yeah.
their own. All you need is a little bit of salt and pepper. Now, if you start adding garlic, cayenne pepper, like any of
Yeah.
that stuff, it makes it taste better.
Well,
But
and the seasonings we usually use are just salt, garlic, and basil. And then you can branch out from there. Those are just the staples. So it's simple. It's not something that is super challenging. Like I said, it cooks faster than regular pasta because it's it's already a vegetable. It's not coming from that hard spaghetti form.
yeah,
It's already soft.
and as my roommate would say, Jeff, you always know when Jeff's cooking sweet potatoes or anything because it is spices like crazy. But to his point, he's like, what makes anything taste better? Just more spices. Take after. He's like, I think he got it for someone that worked in the restaurant business or something like that, where they say whatever you think is the amount of spices, add more. Make it more flavorful. Make it more abundant. Because that's ultimately what's going to change the flavor the most. The amount of cayenne pepper that you put in determines how spicy something is, or maybe it's more on the sweet side, or whatever that is. And it's
For
a
the
lot.
general rule, always add more garlic than the recipe says.
Yeah, and spices are going to be a lot cheaper in the long run than getting some of these like hot pockets, pizza, or whatever the easier thing is, or even pasta. Like
Well, that's
you
the other
know,
thing too. I mean, fresh garlic is always good to have, but for the most part, we end up using garlic powder
yeah.
because it's just simpler. It's
for
have
for
it
a lot of
on
our
hand.
recipes that we create, like the like ones that are not easy, cheap, easy, healthy meals. That's when we use fresh garlic.
Yeah.
When we have the time
Yeah.
to be able to do that. But garlic powder has really great health benefits. Any sort of spice has great health benefits. Obviously, your pink Himalayan salt has great health benefits. So these things, turmeric helps with inflammation. So adding just a little bit of that to your sweet potatoes, eggs, or whatever it's one of those things where seasonings not only taste good, but they also can have health benefits.
Yeah.
Cinnamon, same thing, helps with digestion. It's also a natural sweetener. So a little bit of that in your coffee or in your oatmeal,
Yeah.
when it's something that you're having all the time, like
Just spice it up,
yeah,
change it up.
spice it up. Exactly.
But we do have an article which we'll link that has all of these ingredients listed and the recipes, quote unquote. Like I said, they're not really recipes; they're more like vague instructions about how we do things. But these are things that you can make simply, you can make quickly, and our shopping list. If you're not buying the oils and seasonings, you're gonna be for two people is around $35 for the week. So
Yeah, and if you start to shop, Whole Foods, you get
yeah, I
everything,
don't get it.
Organic grain. I'd be reason to bet that even for a family of four, you could probably keep it under $100 a week.
Yeah.
Even eating like everything that is there. Also, the less this is just me, and you've probably noticed this with me too. The less time that you spend in a store, the less you're going to spend.
Yeah.
I just think that that's kind of a thing. If you let me go in Best Buy, I'm going to end up loading that cart up with too much.
Yeah. Well, we went to Target one time. I had to get one thing, got it. Matt went with me, and we checked out. We left, and Matt's like, "That's how you do it."
Yeah, you just
yeah.
go in, you get
That's all you need.
This is a huge plug for Aldi. I love Aldi. Some of their fresh produce stuff can be sort of hit or miss sometimes, but in terms of the frozen stuff, in terms of even like sweet potatoes to a certain extent, like they're consistent enough. The thing that I love about Aldi's the most is it's so efficient. There's 5 or 6 aisles total, and you just know where
Can't
everything
always
is.
know what you're getting. So it's very simple. It's very cheap. It's something that is easy.
And Aldi doesn't have the most unhealthy section is right when you walk in the door.
Yeah.
And then once you pass it,
You're good.
Yeah, you're good. Whereas that is the reason why if you look at a grocery store, you have the produce on one side, frozen on the other side. You have to walk through all of those aisles in order to get to where you need to go, and you're going to pass through sugar, you're going to pass through bags of chips. It's not out of coincidence that it just happens to be in the middle of the store. They do it on purpose. So if you can, not saying you need to shop at Aldi, but try to find a grocery store that you can be a little bit more efficient in, or even just map out your Giant Run or Giant's a very central PA thing. But
there's specific things that we get at specific stores, but for the most part, we know that we can get everything that we get on a normal basis at Aldi's, so that's what we do. And Aldi's might not be your store, it might be something else, but just find something that's convenient, that has everything. You're ready to go.
Yeah. And for your spices, oils, or even stuff like, big, large bags of frozen broccoli, try to find a big box store.
Yeah.
That also helps too. So rather than getting the little tiny seasonings, get the real big ones, knowing that you're going to be going through that, in probably more like a half a year. Like it lasts a lot longer. But those types of things, especially if because we mentioned cheap a lot in these meals, and it's certainly easy for Sarah and I to make it for less than $50 in order to get everything at Aldi, even when you add like seasonings and stuff. But as soon as
we eat a lot too. This isn't just like the bare bones. This is satisfied.
Yeah, yeah. And the beauty is with like a sweet potato, if you're hungry, or you just make another sweet potato. So keep that in mind, while you're shopping, is that you can certainly find efficiencies and cheaper items than even what we have. We just find that it's always going to be easier if you have everything in one place. So if we're out of something, we just go to one place and we can get everything that we have for these cheap, healthy meals.
And that's another tip. Just have everything on one shopping day. Our shopping day is Sunday. That's when we get it. We don't go to the store hungry in the middle of the week on Wednesday needing only blueberries, because then we come home with blueberries and ice cream and bread and
also, what is Sunday?
I don't know what is Sunday.
It's Pizza Sundays.
Oh yeah, it's Pizza
So
Sunday.
that's another thing. When we go to the grocery store, you always want to, maybe load up on sugar, load up on this, load up on that pizza, whatever. That we can buy pizza at the grocery store because we know we're going to eat it that day. That's Pizza Sunday.
That's it.
But then that's also the day that we get everything else too. So you don't feel like, oh man, I wish I would have gotten that, or why did I get this? Because Sunday is ultimately the day that we choose to eat pizza.
Yeah. But in general, that's it. That's our 7 days of cheap, healthy meals. That is a look into our daily life, into what we eat on an average week, with leftovers, with go-to meals, with just kind of spicing up with fancier meals we don't normally eat, all in a very modest budget.
And I'll reiterate too, we're not saying you have to only eat this.
No.
For me, I could only eat one of these meals every single day for the rest of my life. It wouldn't bother me. So we're not saying don't go eat that, make that Pinterest meal or that cool, recipe that you found on, Facebook or Instagram. Yeah. Make that. Have this in the bank.
Yes.
Have this already. So when that inevitably doesn't go as planned the very first time you make it, you can still fall back on something like this that is consistent. Yes. You know how it's going to taste, and you know how you can season it to make it different.
Yeah.
So that's that, and this goes back to everything that we always stand for is just consistency. The better that you can target what specific things are going into your body, the easier it is that when you get food poisoning or you feel a little bit sick or you didn't sleep as well, you can start to really hone in on
what changed in
your diet. And you can listen to our podcast on the 5 steps to a fitness transformation. Diet isn't really a part of it as much as it is just reducing sugar and some sort of fast
to your body.
Paying attention. So keep all those things in mind. We really don't try to make it more difficult than it has to be. And if this is any sort of clue into how we actually live our life, this is simple. Yeah. These are our staples and meals that we have all the time, and we can certainly add spices and different meals as
nutrition doesn't have to be complicated, and it can be cheap.
You should say complicated.
Complicated, probably. It doesn't have to be complicated.
That's awesome.
It could be cheap and healthy and tasty. See, I was trying to end on, like a real to the point. We'll let Matt finish it up then.
That's all right. I gotta. Today's my squat day, so I wanna try to get ready for that. But thanks for tuning in, guys. We certainly appreciate it. If you do like this, give it a like, subscribe. We'll have this posted on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. We certainly appreciate the views. Share it if you know someone that could benefit from it. But ultimately, it's just the two of us sitting down. We have a couple of really exciting podcasts coming up. But stay tuned. Make sure you're subscribed, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.